Hey there, YouTube, Nova Piper. I'm not really sure what the day is. Smoking my Eric Stockeby, fourth generation, 1931. I can do that from memory now. Smoking Gowth and Hogarth Balkan mixture. No surprise there. And then a really nice smell. It's got a chocolatey smell coming off the bowl, the room note, but it's a strong English. I'm picking up on that lately. Had a couple of requests there for my last video. From Dave in New Brunswick there. Dave 3 something. Sorry, Dave, I keep forgetting. You should change your handle to Dave12345. Dave from New Brunswick. Fellow Maritimer. Fellow Atlantic Canadian. He knows all about what it's like living here. He made a suggestion on my channel. He says, why don't you talk about Halifax Explosion? And Chad Yarborough, another guy who's from down in the U.S., said, yeah, I've heard about it. I'd love to hear it from a local. And of course, I wasn't even born back then. So I said, yeah, man, what a great topic. So I'm winging it here, and I'm going to go by a little bit of memory. I might look something up on my phone there, but I don't know how long this video is going to last. So the baby spider egg hatched, and they're everywhere. That was a while ago. Spider eggs. Spiders keep the flies away. Anyway, I'm going to start rambling, and I'm just going to let it go. It is pretty interesting if you're into history. And where I live here in Halifax, there's a lot of like history, not like ancient history, but wartime history. This is Halifax has been a hub for naval activity since it was founded. Now, when it was officially founded and settled, it was first conquered by Edward Cornwallis in the 1700s or the 1600s, I think, and he slaughtered all the natives, so they celebrate him. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. We won't go there. But way back in the 1800s, this has been our harbor it's a natural harbor. It's not man-made. It's deep, and it's ice-free. It's probably, the harbor comes in like a narrow harbor, and then at the end is a big basin. We call it Bedford Basin. A lot of ships will come in to hide from storms because, you're pretty safe in the basin than you are out on the ocean. So back in, and it's also well fortified. So back in the 1800s, you can go out to the entrance of the harbor, and you can see the old cannons. They're still there, the old forts and stuff. That's pretty cool. Kids climb all over the cannons and stuff. And then there's a big island out in the middle of the harbor. No one ever goes to it. It's all woods, basically. I've been there once. It's called McNabb's Island. The same thing, entrance of the harbor, and they got cannons pointing out. So it's well defended. Always has been. There's a big hill in the city called Citadel Hill. My mom grew up right across the street from it. And Citadel Hill was a fort, a Navy, British, or a British Army fort way up on a hill, and they got cannons, and you could see out the harbor and all that stuff. But geographically, Halifax is also, during World War I and World War II, Halifax, let's say you got ships coming up the east coast of North America from New York, big harbors and stuff. You come up to Halifax, and then you go over to England, to Europe. Now, a lot of people, if you look at a map, it looks like you're going out of the way, but if you take a piece of string and you put one end on New York and you put the other end on, let's say, London, that piece of string is going to go right over Nova Scotia because the Earth is round. There's an internet group out there that debates that. So the Earth is flat, but anyway. So even today, all the transcontinental flights at nighttime, you can see all the airplanes going overhead because they all fly overhead to go to hit the jet stream. It's a intercontinental airways. Gander, Newfoundland, and then someplace in Ireland is your first and last handoffs before you hit the Northern Airways to go overseas. So there's Gander, Newfoundland may not have a very big airport, but they have one of the busiest, probably busiest air traffic controllers. You go like Boston, Halifax, Moncton, Gander. They're busy for air traffic. All right, I saw a squirrel there. So the big point is that geographically Halifax, its location, has always had some significance. And during wartime, back in World War II, Halifax was about 50,000 people. There was a lot of ships would come in and supply before heading over to Europe, the war in Europe. We're talking World War I. So, yeah, the Halifax Explosion happened on December 9th, 1917. So we're celebrating the 100th year anniversary of the Halifax Explosion. And what had happened was there was two ships. Now the harbor's crowded with warships, supply ships. Pleasure, ferries. We've got the oldest saltwater ferry in North America here. There's lots of traffic because you got two cities, and the only way to get to them is to either go around the harbor, which back then would take horse and buggy, would take you forever. Cars were a luxury, or you take a ferry across the harbor. And you guys that sail, you always know that you pass to the right, pass a ship to the right. Even that's a tradition that's still used. So you've always, on your port side, you've always got you're at the other ship, the other vessel, and in our harbor, outgoing vessels always have the right of way. So the rules got tested a little bit, I guess, and there was some confusion. And these ships were going really slow. I think one might have been docked, one was going slow. They were barely moving, but there was a French munition ship called the Mont Blanc, and it was loaded with benzene and TNT on its way to France for the war effort. There was a supply ship called the Emo, and it was Norwegian, and I think it was on its way to Belgium. And for those of you who don't know, in World War I and II, I know in World War II for sure, I'm pretty sure back then Halifax or Canadians were in the trenches and stuff, and we helped liberate Holland in World War II, I believe. So anyway, a fire broke out on the Mont Blanc, which is the munition ship, loaded with benzene and TNT. And they weren't really going in the right direction to pass the Emo. And there was some confusion, and they were going right for each other. And they collided. The collision caused the liquid benzene on deck to, while it was on fire, to seep down into the TNT. And you could see the fire from the shore, and of course all the people, it was early morning, it was like 9 o'clock. People were lining up on the side of the harbor, to check it out. Oh, look, there's a fire. You do that today, right? There weren't too many people. The guys on board the ship knew the extent of what was going to happen, and not too many people on shore did. There was always, back then, there was always lots of ship activity in the harbor, so it was normal. But see a fire, so everybody stopped to look. And one guy knew what was going on. You got to remember, this is 1917, so telegraph was your main means of communication, not YouTube or Facebook. So I don't know the guy's name. I was trying to look it up. But they made a little commercial about it in Canada. It was a railway worker. And there was a train on its way in from it was coming in from St. John, New Brunswick. And he was sending a telegraph to say, like, hold up, explosion imminent. This will be my last. This is going to be my last communication. He knew he was going to die, right? But he stayed there and said, stop the train, stop the train. And they got the message and they stopped it, and they saved lots of lives because of that. Train coming from St. John, when it eventually, after the explosion, I forget where at the train, how far you could get before they found wreckage, but anyway, what happened is when the ships collided, the liquid benzene got down into the hold where the TNT was, and it exploded. I forget how much explosives were on board, but they estimated the explosion to be 2.9 kilotons. So that was the largest man-made explosion until 1945. Anyway, we all know what that was. That was the extent of, that's how powerful that explosion was. It was measured in kiloton. What does that mean to me and you? Nothing. I have no idea what type of force, because our harbor is naturally deep. The explosion, it absolutely evaporated all the water in the area, created a tsunami. But it happened in the narrowest part of the harbor, called the Narrows. I still call it the Narrows. And back then in Halifax side, there's Halifax side of the harbor, then the Dartmouth side. Two different cities back then. It's all the same now, but it's still Halifax, Dartmouth. They just amalgamated them for, financial purposes, but they're still separate cities. So the neighborhood of that time was called Richmond, and it was leveled, completely leveled. So, in a harbor that's maybe 1.5, 2 kilometers wide, you got a 3 kiloton explosion. And where the ship was probably, I don't know how deep the harbor was there, but it's fucking deep. Okay. The shockwave bounced down and came back up. And during the Manhattan Project, if you guys watch documentaries about nuclear bombs, you notice that even the Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the ones that were, dropped during war, they were detonated in the air, not on the ground. When they were doing tests in the Manhattan Project, they always detonated them off of towers. And that's the reason why they did that, is because of nobody knew about that at the time, but they took the evidence from that explosion in 1917 and said, wow, because that explosion happened above ground, it evaporated the water instantly, so that force hit the ground and then came focused. You kind of focused it and came back up, and it made it was even more devastating because the detonation happened above ground level. So that's why they do nuclear testing, and nuclear bombs are dropped in the air, because they took that evidence from this explosion and put it to practice. So that's why they do it. It's from the Halifax Explosion. Not a really good claim to fame there, is it? So they estimated that numbers vary anywhere between, say, 1,700 and 2,000 deaths. It depends where you read. Census information wasn't that accurate back then, and it's just morbid, but how do you match this arm with that leg? I got 2 legs and 2 arms, and a head and a body. There's one, It was a blizzard was happening, so it was December, and we were hit with a blizzard to make things even worse. Everything within like a mile or two was completely leveled. Glass shattered, windows broke, tens of miles away. I hear Mom telling stories about her aunt or somebody who went blind from glass flying in her eyes. Parts of the ship's anchors and guns were found kilometers away. They're still there at memorials. The anchor, the Emo, or the Mont Blanc's cannon and stuff. a lot of the devastation wasn't just from the explosion, but the fires afterwards. And a lot of people had wood stoves and fireplaces and whatever, oil stoves. So when your stoves fall over, your house catches fire. So that helped add to the devastation as well. I think was it 5,000 injured or 7,000 injured or something like that. You see pictures online of the bodies just laying out in the snow. It just looked like a war zone. The neighborhood that it happened in, when they rebuilt it, they built it all out of concrete stone in case it happened again. The neighborhood now in Halifax is called Hydrostone. And all the houses are concrete bricks. Big, I don't mean like a concrete, I mean big, moved with machinery bricks. Nice houses. Very nice neighborhood. There's memorials and church services that happen all the time. One of the, we were getting a lot of aid from all kinds of different places. Another thing about Halifax is it's isolated. It always has been, it probably always will be. It's probably the only city, probably the largest city north of Boston, east of Montreal. And if you live in this part of the world, you know that there's nothing. There's, scattered cities and woods. Unless you live on the ocean like me, and there's all little fishing villages, but there's a lot of woods, a lot of trees. New Brunswick, the same thing. There's a lot of nothing. Down in Maine, parts of the States the same way. So here we are out on the ocean, all about isolated, 1,000, 1,500 miles away from, big cities. St. John, a train from St. John finally made it through. They were helping ship people off I think it went to Rockingham, which isn't too far from where I live. It's a rail station. I think it was one of the first railway stations in Canada. It's where the railway started here, so lots of transportation coming in to help the war effort, because this was the port. This was how you got to the ocean, was here, Halifax. So St. John sent a bunch of supplies, different cities from around, and Boston. Boston was one of the first cities to respond, and they sent a train full of medical staff, and that's what we really needed. And to this day, every Christmas, we send Boston a giant fir tree, a big Christmas tree. So every year we cut one down, put it on the truck. It's a big fucking tree, right? Tractor trailer size. Tie it up, put it on a truck, drive it down to Boston, and that's to thank them for their efforts 100 years ago. If you ever visit Halifax in your downtown or anywhere around the city, you'll see lots of memorials and anchors and shit like that. But if you look at our City Hall. City Hall's an old stone building. It's been there forever. It's got a clock on it. One faces north, one faces south. The explosion happened north, on the north side of the town hall. And on the south side, the clock will show you the time. On the north face of the clock, it says 4 minutes after 9. And it said 4 minutes after 9 for the past 100 years. And that's what time the clock stopped when the explosion happened. And it still says 9:04. Anyway, it's about what I know. I don't know how accurate it is, but look it up online. It's pretty interesting. There's actually some rare video footage and shit like that. Lots of pictures. But anyway, that's what I know about Halifax Explosion. A little part of our history. Anyway, thanks for watching. And everyone take care. See ya.